All right, guys, we're back again. Maybe like some of you guys saw that there was an attempted prior video, bad service. So we're trying it again now. It should be better now. Yeah, it's moving faster. Just had to get closer to the router. Last weekend at the beach house. And by the way, what an incredible fall so far in terms of the weather. You know, usually down here, it's nice this time of year, but it's not this nice. we could keep the house open another 2 weeks at this rate. No doubt about it. But yeah, let me just put this stuff out there live now. You know, got to get the Twitter peeps on board. We got some fun wine for you tonight. This is a shout out to Dr. Dynamis on Twitter, who's taking a little bit of a break, but Dr. Dynamis, awesome guy. Some of the best material, I think, in the corner, and I think your best energy, real distinct person. But he's Lebanese, and we're doing Lebanese wine today. So a little quick lecture on Lebanon. So Lebanese wine is obviously it's been produced there for a very long period of time. Well prior to the Crusades, everything in the Levant was big like this. But when we got to basically the Ottoman Empire, only Christians could produce wine because wine was only allowed to be produced for religious purposes. And in the late 1800s, there started to be more interest, particularly from the French, who eventually had Lebanon as a colony. And as there was French influence there, you not only had an influx of French varietals, but French winemaking capability. And I think crucially and importantly, this sense of, just a massive market for it. Now, Lebanon was really a model state, model nation, all the way up until the Civil War in 75. And as many people would know, that kind of messed up a lot of the country. And, well, I guess what you could say is that after the Civil War, Lebanon was really just brutalized, and most of the wine, only 2 harvests, I think, were missed due to the war. But it was a really brutal war. And the only wine producer at that time period that really understood that, you needed to get beyond domestic consumption was Chateau Moussard. And you could say today that Chateau Moussard is probably, no doubt, the most well-known Lebanese wine producer out there. There's another 2 producers worth mentioning, Chateau Kafraya, which has really come onto its own, and I think is pretty consistently known for number 2 in quality. And then I think you have another one was at Chateau Ksara, which is a little bit more bulk production, but they have plenty of good stuff. Anyway, I don't have those 2 producers. I only have Chateau Moussard. Now, Chateau Moussard is a very, very interesting producer. It's known to have very aromatic reds, and it's kind of got its own style. So some people, don't think it's great or don't know what the hype's all about, but it's got a very dedicated fan base. And, as the first ones to really focus on export, they have a big brand name recognition. And so I'm very happy to announce that I have 3 bottles of Chateau Moussard here today. Very interesting stuff. So we have right here Moussard Jaune. Okay, Moussard Jaune. So this is, I'm imagining, is going to be a very light, simple red wine. And then we have Chateau Moussard Hochar Parafiles 2017. This is, Hochar is the family, right? Hochar is the Lebanese family. I think it's probably a standard one. This is the one I would imagine is more high end. And if I recall, I did spend quite a bit more on this one. 2013 as well. So, and Jackson, it's good to see you. Good to see you in the chat. So, I expect, I set this up in this vertical position. I expect lighter through heavier. When I say heavier, I mean basic to more complex. 2013's old enough that you might actually start to get some age on it. Now, Chateau Moussard, the predominant, it's, they do all sorts of blends, but the predominant blend that they do, which is very interesting, you won't see anything like this in France, is mostly Cabernet Sauvignon, which is a Bordeaux varietal, backed by Sanso and Carignan, which are both varietals in the south of France. So, and Carignan is one of those grapes that produces really standard bulk wine in southern France. But if you have old vine, Carignan could be really great. And when we get into southern France, we'll definitely try some of that. At any rate, let's go try this. Let's try this and get the show on the road. Oh, man. So this is all, the main producing area in Lebanon is the Bekaa Valley, which you may have known as actually, I think, where Hezbollah is mostly located. That's no affiliation to the winemakers, of course. But just to show you on the map real quick, it's this area right here. So this purple area. As you can see, the vast majority of Lebanese wine is found there. But they're producing in other areas. So pretty cool stuff. All right. Let's dive into this. So the Moussard Jeune. So I can see what people are talking about. Very aromatic, and people have also commented on it having volatile acidity, and I can smell that as well. Volatile acidity. Without getting into the chemistry of it, basically with wine, you're supposed to standardly you do various mechanisms to keep the acidity stable. And it's often a mark of either a little bit too much heat, because the heat does something to the acidity, which I'm not sure chemically what it does, but it makes it volatile. And it can add this I almost call it like a radioactive quality to the wine. Like there's this really bright fruit flavor that comes forward, but it's not like a clean one. It's very, it's almost like a fruit tart kind of thing. So it's often considered to be maybe a mark of an amateur winemaker, but it's stylistic as well. So that's one of the stylistic influences. So let's try it. That's really good. Interesting. It's actually not super heavy. It's so many paradoxical things going on at the same time with the Moussard Jeune here. The Moussard Jeune, so you're getting a lot of the perfume I'm talking about, but the body itself isn't. It seems kind of like light and easy drinking, but I think that the oak that's on here is still, it's a little chewy. It's a little coating. But you got tons of pepper, and there's no doubt that there's Cabernet Sauvignon in this sucker. All right, let's try the Hochard number 2. Ooh, all right. So this is a massive amount of stink. This smells like a Pinotage would smell. Like we're talking black olives, olive brine. Wow, this is wild stuff. See, I understand why people are all about this and why they have mixed reputation, because these guys are just throwing all sorts of flavors at the wall here. They're I love getting wines like this. Tony, how you doing, man? How you doing? I was on Tony's show last week. We went for like 3 hours. It's a wild show. Over 3 hours, I think, even. This is like incredible stuff. I'm loving these Lebanese wines. Oh man, I'm loving this. Multiple different layers of flavor. We're talking black cherry, we're talking tar, we're talking that olive, very leathery, like animal. So I guess where I'm going with the tar. But at the same time, not super heavy on you. This is only a 4-year-old wine. It tastes a lot older than it is. I'm loving this stuff, guys. I'm loving it. I'm loving these Chateau Moussards. Years back, my dad and I went to a tasting at the Union League in Philadelphia, and we got a chance to taste all these wines from a little fresh tennis ball. Hey, I remember one of the at one tasting, some guy described it as an applesauce container at the bottom of a locker. And I was like, wine is like so stupid. Like, I can't believe that people get away with these kind of comments. But at the same time, it was descriptive. So you did get to imagine it. You know, people have fun. It gets a little bit bullshitty. I don't consider myself particularly good at this stuff in terms of, you know, being able to pull out those specific flavors. My go-to guy is Mark Vallon, who's a wine producer, a vinifier, I should say, in I think around SoCal. Opening a hose out of the box for the first time. All right, so this 2013 Chateau Moussard is really, this smells like blue cheese, guys. I don't know. The cork looked fine. I don't think it's spoiled. This is wild, wild stuff. I don't think I've ever had such like craziness in one of these tastings before, but they've been good so far. Blue cheese, the black currant, man. Jesus. All right, I gotta tell you, I'm in love with Chateau Moussard. I'm in love. I'm a fanboy. This is so good, guys. This is so good. And I know that this wasn't cheap, but none of these were bank breaking. This is like well above tier for a basic wine. And this is like, I love them all. Absolutely love them all. Heard a good one today. La Croix is like drinking static from a TV. Man, ain't that the truth? Although, I'm not really big on the carbonation. Just drinking static from a TV. All right, look, let's get into this. Let's get into it because I know we got stuff to do. So, question number 1. So here's a question. This quote has been stated as being solipsistic. Quote. This is from a woman, okay? When looking for a life partner, my advice to women is to date all of them. The bad boys, the cool boys, the commitment-phobic boys, the crazy boys, but do not marry them. The things that make the bad boys sexy do not make them good husbands. When it comes time to settle down, find someone who wants an equal partner, someone who thinks women should be smart, opinionated, and ambitious, someone who values fairness and expects, or even better, wants to do his share in the home. These men exist, and trust me, over time, nothing is sexier. From Sheryl Sandberg, Lean In, Women Work, and the Will to Lead. And he's saying, I have no idea why. Okay, so it is solipsistic. However, I just think it's more, I don't know that would be the word that I would use to describe it. I don't think it's the perfect word for it. I mean, obviously she's operating from the perspective of, you know, I'm a woman and I want to get whatever I want. Nothing wrong with that. You know, I mean, I don't think what she's saying is correct. I think that's where the error is that this isn't really stuff that, look, is it true? Is some of what she's saying true? Yes. What she's saying that's true is that a lot of the guys who will make a good fuck for a girl, so to speak, are not going to be good husbands. But 100% true. And she is correct in that, you know, there's a different kind of dynamic, and in a marriage, it's, you know, having mutual respect for each other is important versus, you know, like a random hookup, which may be based on some sort of, you know, trauma bond or shadow situation. It's a fantasy basically. But she's going too far with it. You know, he thinks women should be smart, opinionated, and ambitious. No, guys don't want that shit. Guys don't want that shit. Smart, yeah, they do want smart. If a guy's smart, he wants that. But guys don't want ambitious girls. They don't want girls who are going to be lazy. All right, I want to make this point because the way that stupid arguments proliferate is that people will will use these like sort of straw man arguments. And so they'll say, well, what do you want? You want a woman who just sits around and does nothing all day? Or do you want a strong, independent woman who's going to do... It's like, why are you making these dichotomies? No man wants a lazy woman. I think it was actually Cernovich who put out a quote recently, like, doesn't want a girl sitting around playing Candy Crush all day. 100%. And those girls would cheat anyway, unless they get too fat that no one's going to want them. And I'm being totally blunt about this stuff. Guys want a woman who has energy, because a woman who has energy is going to take less energy from them. Understand? And will actually help to amplify his own energy. So, practically speaking here, what does that look like? What does that mean? It's usually that you want a woman who has passion, who wants to do something. But this whole like, I want a, super ambitious person who's going to do, who's going to go do this and who's going to go do that and who's going to... No, like, men want a wife, right? They want a wife. They want a woman they respect, but, in being a career woman, a man might respect that, but over time, he's not going to feel any emotion from it. So she's, as usual, just feeding in there some sort of stupid propaganda. But yeah, she's correct in the sense that, a lot of the early guys, but she says date all of them. Well, I mean, I think that there's some value in understanding what an archetype is like, so that you understand your relationship to it. So in terms of her saying date all these other guys, whatever. But yeah, ultimately what women want is they want a guy who is capable of mutual respect, but doesn't take any of her shit. That's what they like. That's what they like, guys. Of course, other things as well. Being in good shape and being mentally strong, but that's like, not taking her shit. So, Tim, thanks for the kind words, man. Let me go to the next question. But yeah, just to make this last statement though about solipsistic. Solipsism it's almost like self-centeredness. It's not narcissism. Narcissism is really the belief that you're the only person who matters. Solipsism is just simply this belief that your own emotions have to be what other people also think about. So narcissism is like an indifference to other people's emotions. It's all about you. Solipsism is actually almost like a lack of awareness. And everybody can do that. Women are more inclined towards it, much more inclined towards it. And this is why people will make the comment that women lack objectivity. Objectively, they tend to lack objectivity because of this solipsistic trait. But I think it's a trait of the feminine in general. Less than masculine is more objective, the feminine is more subjective. And so even if a guy is more, if he's in his feminine, he's going to be solipsistic as well. There are all these bugs in this delicious wine. They know what's up. They know what's up. All right. I'm going to answer one more before I get you guys in the chat. All right, Steve and Andrew? I'm going to hit you guys up, though. Don't worry. I'm at the point where it's very easy to have a conversation with a girl at a bar. Goes great. We make out. Happens every weekend, but doesn't convert to sex or dates. What's the next step? Well, I mean, of course, making the assumption that's what you want, right? You want to hook up with them. You want to have sex with them. I have, and I'd have to really ask you a lot of details about these interactions, but I can tell you what's probably happening is that you're not bringing enough, how do I put it? It could be a selection issue in terms of the girls that you're orienting yourself towards. So the girls who really want to go out and fuck that night are not the girls that you necessarily want to, or that you're orienting yourself towards more. And this is a bigger topic, and I just will touch on it very, very briefly. A lot of guys don't really know what they want, and so a lot of their problems come down to the fact that they send off the wrong energy. So they'll say, I want to go learn how to get one night stands with girls, I want to hook up with girls, but then the girls they go to are not they're drawn to are not those kind of girls who would want to have a one night stand. So there's a dissonance there. And so then you get some mixed results. I will say that in addition to that, there's issues on the escalation ladder probably. And, you know, I don't know what this is. He's saying make out happens every weekend. There needs to be more of a focus probably on logistics, dealing with logistics. How much have you ramped her up sexually? What are the issues with friends in the area? I would like to actually just hear more about this and exactly what he's doing, because, you know, not to take away from it, it's not necessarily that difficult to make out with a girl at a bar, especially as the night goes on and alcohol happens, just simply because it's perfect for a girl in a lot of ways, because she can go have a good time, totally check the box that she had some sort of romantic connection with a dude, you know, that she had fun because there was a guy who was interested in her. So that gives her that desire that she was looking for when she was going out. But making out doesn't count as anything. It's not slutty, right? Some people might say that, but really it's not that slutty. And she doesn't have any real risk because she's doing it in that location. Everything's confined to the situation. Once you take it out of there and you go sexual, it's a very different story for her. There's a lot of other things that come up. There's a lot of deeper concerns about how much that she wanted to have sex, how like connected she feels with you. So those are the sort of things, but I have to, you're welcome to send information, and, you know, I can hash it out next show. All right. Some of these questions. Steven, hey, Pat, can you please explain why a girl will watch every single story of yours, always be the first one to watch, but won't set a proper date, answer DM? Notice this with a few different girls. Loving these Moussards. My God, they're so good. Well, girls are immature. I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's really not. It's really that simple. When a girl is immature, she is going to try to harvest your attention, and she'll do things like, you know, like your stories, you know, watch your stories, try to do all this sort of stuff just to kind of keep you in, how do I put it, to keep your attention on her. But it's partially it's partially that she's not fully there to want to hang out. But I don't want to even say that, because it's not really fundamentally about you. It's about the fact that she's not really serious about connecting with pretty much anybody. She just likes to harvest the attention. It's very safe for her to do that. So that's what she does. This is a very common thing. So the fact that you noticed it with a few different girls doesn't surprise me. It's very common these days. A lot of girls fall into that category, or they end up being just total sluts. Basically, it's the two things. Of course, there are women who are great and are not in those categories, but because of all the trauma women have sustained, a lot of them will do this sort of attention harvesting, and, you know, they want you. They know you're not going to invest if they don't show interest, so they show interest to waste your time. The biggest thing I can recommend to you, and your game will go up, is that if a girl does this stuff, you just immediately cut her out. Just cut her out. Completely cut her out of your mind. They almost never convert. Seriously, they almost never convert. And why waste your time on girls like that? All right, next question on the list. I'm going to ping back and forth between these. Pat, how long after the successful first date do you ask or plan to go on another one? Okay. Well, talk about this in my book, Tackling Texting. Talk about this in my masterclass, but I'll just say real quick. Obviously, it depends on the context and situation, what is exactly going on with, with you guys, right? Like, is she going to be around? But assuming that all the variables are stable and that she's in the same area, I think it's reasonable to set it up within a week or two. If the first date is really good, then definitely set it up within the week. If it's solid, you can set it up within 10 days to 2 weeks. After that, unless there's a legitimate logistical reason, like someone's going on vacation, you don't want to ever have it go past 2 weeks. I really think that the sweet spot is within 10 days of that. 10 days plus or minus, 4 basically. So 6 to 14 days basically. Yeah, that's about the range that you want to do it. And if she had a good first date, she should want to do that. All right. But there's things that you can do via texting to sort of continue to stimulate the interest. Stephen, you said, what should I do tactically? What you should do tactically, maybe I wasn't clear, is not waste your time on them. That's what you should do tactically, is do not waste your time on them. Because if a girl is playing that game, it's an indication that you're too willing to give away your energy, and you'll actually attract only girls like that. Once you just basically tell these girls, I don't mean you have to tell them, but once you stop giving them any energy and you say, if a girl wastes my time, I'm not going to talk to her. I'm not going to go after her. I'm going to write her off. You will immediately start to get better girls into your life. So that's the tactical situation. What do you mean by this, Sean? Setup equals asking for the date. Please clarify. All right, next question here. Andrew. All right. Hey, Pat, don't you feel that in this day and age, it's better to have a woman that has perspective on dating when picking someone, i.e. experiencing a bad guy to appreciate a good guy? Well, I do think that there's a lot of value in this. Let me put it this way. The core answer is yes. The core answer is yes. But I don't want to make a statement saying that can be misconstrued as a girl's got to slut it up to understand what a good man is. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. Absolutely not what I'm saying. I think it's a slippery slope when you talk about this stuff to it going that direction. Because if a woman was healthy, she wouldn't feel the need to go down that direction. She wouldn't feel the need to, in the past, the standards were such that if a guy simply made a woman interested in her, if a guy made a woman interested in him and he was just a bad boy, that her honor had been violated. I mean, seriously, they had such serious strictures, and I'm not saying we should go back to, Pride and Prejudice or anything like that. But just to put it in perspective, where the bar was, I think that there is some value with women being able to, and I think for men as well, I think that there's value in them seeing this other side, but it really becomes this question of how much of that is necessary simply because we're so fucked up as a society. How much of it is useful for that reason? I don't think that we should encourage people to go out and explore if they don't actually need it. And how much of them going out and feeling the need to explore is because we have this cultural norm that they have to go out and explore. It's a worthwhile question. It's a worthwhile question, and I don't know that I have a clear-cut answer to it. A lot of what women do with this stuff has to be unwired. It has to be unwired. So if a girl were to be with a guy and neither of them were too messed up, they could do more of the shadow work together. And they might not even have the inclination to really go so dark in it. To really, really go down the dark side, because there was already enough acceptance mutually between the two of them. It's a good question. It's a really good question, Andrew. But what I will say is that I think a woman who goes through that sort of bad boy, nice guy, I'm tired of both of these. And I make that point directly because if a woman, we don't want the woman who ping pongs between the bad boy and the nice guy, right? We want a woman who's tired of the paradigm and wants to integrate. That's what we want as men. And I would feel better about a woman learning her lesson at least very early if she didn't have an intuitive sense of it off the bat. But good question. Very good question. And I'm going to just jump to the next one down here from Paul because it's connected. Can game be integrated with your authentic personality? Often feels clumsy trying to implement aspects of game and can ruin natural feeling of playfulness. Well, so speaking of integration and stuff, game can be integrated with your authentic personality. In fact, I would just simply say that game is just one aspect of your authentic personality. And a good game is simply you showing that one aspect rather than layering on some sort of artificial program, which a lot of guys do. Good game is completely congruent with your personality. It's just contextually used. You understand the context, so you emphasize a certain part. You know, just like in a sale, you are not going to, unless you're dealing with objections, right? You're not going to try to make yourself look bad. You know, everybody has problems. You're not going to go and dump all your emotional issues on a girl when you first meet, right? Well, you could say, well, that's authentic. Why does it make it more authentic just because it's bullshit? Aren't good things about yourself also authentic? Game is only inauthentic when it's literally false. And yes, this is gray area stuff, but it's not that gray. So I'm gonna see something here. These damn bugs. They know where the good stuff is at. They're going in the bottle. Ruining this shit. All right. Let me see here. Sean, just following up on your thing. You said you should set up the date within a week, 10 days. Do you mean having the next date or texting the plan the next date? Okay, good clarification question. So I think after the date, you either text her that night or you text her the next morning. You can take a day or two off from messaging each other, but you want to get back into it. Actually, if the first date's good, you should seed the first date, the ideas in the first date for the second date on the first date. But you can start to set it up early the subsequent week. I'm assuming the date's like on a Friday, let's say. The date's on a Friday, Thursday or Friday, right? You should be talking about the details, logistics. You may have already said, hey, next weekend, what are you up? We'll set something up for next weekend, right? You seed it on the date. But the key thing here is actually that you're going to, a lot of this has to do with, I'm hesitating because a lot of this has to do with the pacing. Like, again, how good was the first date? But yeah, you want to be messaging her within a couple of days. Maybe you have to spike attraction again via text, but you want to be moving towards it. Get her schedule. If you know that she has a clear schedule that next weekend, you can do it. But it's true that you probably, if you start to set it up completely, like midweek, the week after, 5 days after, it might be tight for the subsequent weekend. It might be. So it could be, in that case, stretched out to 2 weeks. I'm really happy you asked the clarification question because there is this sort of sense that it's no problem. It's good to have the date the weekend after, but practically speaking, by the time things get set up, it may end up being 2 weeks. But that's why you want to make a move, because you definitely don't want it to be 3 weeks unless there's some other logistical reason. It's too much. I will emphasize it again. If the first date was good, unless there's logistical issues, you shouldn't have a hard time setting up the second date within 10 days. or when I say you shouldn't have a hard time within 10 days of having the second date. Okay. Because, the first one may have been on like a Thursday, the next one may be on the next Saturday, right? That gives you a little bit more of an on ramp. That's why 10 days tends to be the range when it happens. And it's another reason that having a first date on a weekday is a pretty good decision, because you don't waste a weekend night, but it also gives you a little bit more of an on ramp to the subsequent weekends to have like a really good second date. All right. Now let's see here. Got time for, I'm going to do one more here. Is it reasonable to strive to be the man you wish your father was, or is this unhealthy? Is it at odds with the idea of killing your father? Thanks as always. So, this is a funny question. There's an old saying that every man either wants to live up to his father or make up for what he didn't do. Men have a very complicated dynamic with their father because they are their father. Quite literally, genetically, they're their father, and they're their father's lineage. They carry their father's lineage, so they carry his sins and they carry his victories, and all this weighs very heavily, and it goes in both directions, because then the father, for his part, feels as if, did he set up things well enough for his son? Did he set a good enough example? Was he good enough? It's a very emotionally charged dynamic. It might be even the most emotionally charged dynamic of all the sort of inner family dynamics. That's debatable. There's often a lot of pressure and in these situations. So, okay. So what is that? So it's not unreasonable to try to live up to your father. It's natural. And it's not unhealthy. However, or at least I hesitate to use the term unhealthy, but I will say this. Breaking out of the karmic pattern of your family is fundamentally about not being controlled by your father's legacy, not being dictated to by basically what he did in his life. And a good father will actually free you of that burden, or a self-aware father, I'll put it that way. He will be aware of the pressure that he puts on his son and will encourage his son to be himself rather than have to be like him or live up to him. And that allows a more organic and less distorted relationship where there's all these pressures in between. Most fathers don't do this though because they didn't get it from their father. So if you're trying to break family karma, it cut out again. It seems to happen every single show these days on StreamYard. StreamYard's kind of glitching in some sense with me. I'm coming back in just to answer these last questions in the chat. But yeah, the what I was trying to close off with here was that no, it's not at odds with the idea of killing your father. Actually, the idea of killing your father is directly connected to killing the need to be tied to his expectations, basically. So this whole thing is it's directly connected. All right, so let me see the rest of this stuff here. Andrew, hey, right here. By the way, if anyone isn't a client of Pat, I highly recommend it. He is fantastic and will help you tremendously. Non-sponsored endorsement. Well, I appreciate that, Andrew. I appreciate that. Ask Andrew how he knows. Ask Andrew how he knows. All right, so let me see here. You're welcome, Paul. All right, so these last two questions here in the chat. How should you let a girl you like but text you a bit too often to stop? Just don't reply much? Well, the funny thing about this is that you are going to naturally not reply much, and because you're going to be tired of talking to her and interacting with her. It's going to be too much for you, so you're going to pull back. But when you do that, she tends to just message you more. So that is the initial step, is you don't want to, you kind of want to center the hint subtly. So you pull back, and she might get it. She might get the lesson, but often she doesn't, unfortunately. So if she doesn't, then it's literally just, you have to have a conversation with her, and you tell her, hey, look, I really like you. I just, I don't really text as much and everything. And I don't, I feel like a little bit overburdened with it. You would only say that stuff if you really like her and you feel like something's moving forward. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, it's a big waste to even bother and just end it, because you've kind of extracted what you could out of the situation. All right, last question from Seth. I know there's a lot of questions, but if you can get to it, what do you think the future of dating holds? What major shifts would you like to see happen? All right, this is a great question to end on, so I appreciate the question, Seth. All right. So, the future of dating, there's two futures right now. And if you guys watch my COVID Cabal stuff, which I'm on Twitch now, if you want to watch that, I only do that on Twitch. Nothing related to dating relationships. But there really are starkly two futures for humanity at this point. And it's either going to get more and more dystopian, or it's going to become a golden age. And it's really, there's not much of an in-between with that stuff. It's a matter of how fast either will happen, exactly what mechanisms it's going to happen with. But the reason dating is so difficult today is because we are in a traumatized society, and that's deliberate. Okay, so trauma begets dating issues, which begets stupid shit, stupid behavior, self-destructive behavior. Healthy societies, especially when there's more and more consciousness and awareness, the consciousness and awareness inhibits things from getting bad. Because if you have consciousness, if you have wisdom, you're not going to go down the dark path because you actually understand it. This last sort of this is what I think. I think that we are going to have a future that's going to be very, very good for dating relationships. And I think we're going to have in the short to medium term, a lot of micro communities that are going to come up, people who have similar levels of awareness and consciousness, and they're going to connect with each other, and they're going to build with each other. And people are going to date through that more and more. And I think that these communities are not simply physical, but they're also going to be virtual, but they're going to be grounded to physical values. So, but people are going to be connecting online. That's why I talk about social media, and I talk about why I think social media is valuable if you use it to connect with people of your same values, because we're creating new micro communities first online, then bringing it down to the physical. But the biggest thing that we're facing right now is the healing of trauma, the healing of damage. Things wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be much of a, I like to joke, and some people have actually disagree with me on this, and I think they have good points. But I would joke that, in a healthy society, I wouldn't have a job right now. Maybe we should have had more of me in the past, they've said, and appreciate those comments. But the point here fundamentally is that we got to deal with the trauma. And if we do what I think we're going to do and heal this trauma, we're going to get deeper and deeper and more connected relationships, and we'll have an amazing future. But if we don't get to do that, it's going to be dystopian, and everything will be transactional. So, but I don't see that happening, guys. I don't see that happening. We're making a big difference here. We're building the future as it is, and we're going to got a messy transition to go through, but we're going to get through it. I got to go to dinner, but I will see you guys next time. Finish off the rest of the questions on the list. I love you. Appreciate you all. And